For those born and raised in the 2 decades immediately following World War II, we often think of our American democracy as robust and resilient, especially in comparison with those other forms of governance, which are often opposed from above by strongmen upon the populace. Whether fleeting or long-lasting, no other experiment in government has so effectively succeeded in its commitment to the participation of its populace. Churchill wrote, "Many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." And yet, even with evidence of the continuing and enduring success of our republic's 2.5-century experiment in democracy, we know that our nation, like any organic body, can be as fragile and delicate as it is simultaneously muscular and bony. And for many of us of a particular age and older, the aging of a body comes with a recognition of limitations, the slowing down of healing, and even a level of psychological disillusionment. Perhaps that is why, as I get older, I take more and more comfort in the early morning prayers offered just upon rising, where Jews recite some variation or version of the traditional Asher Yatzar prayer, which reads, "God who designed human beings with wisdom and fashioned within us the vast varieties of hollows and orifices, how obvious and apparent it is that if even one of them were to open or close incorrectly, that it would be impossible for a human being to continue to stand before you for even a single hour. Blessed are you, Adonai, physician of all flesh, who performs wonders." Rather than a prayer recited in response to illness, such as the refuah healing prayer that we are accustomed to singing, this early morning Asher Yatzar prayer is a daily acknowledgement and reminder not to take for granted our body's miraculous functioning and homeostasis. It proclaims that our bodies are quite literally functioning miracles that give evidence of their creator. That is not to say, however, that they have been created, that having been created and fashioned in the divine image, that the human body is either perfect or indestructible. No. No long-running system, organic or otherwise, can endure a century or centuries, at least not without constant attention and maintenance. Elements are misused and abused, however unintentionally. Parts wear out, and in general, we start to get sloppy or inattentive to the increasing need for ongoing, regular maintenance. To further complicate matters, our bodies often appear complicit, along with our minds and spirits, making choices, actively or passively, consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or inadvertently, choices that induce grief and have long-lasting repercussions. And as self-proclaimed masters of our own bodies, it is amazing the number of excuses we make for their harmful actions and impact, as if our bodies literally had a mind of their own, separate from our intellect and spirit. The body and its well-being is not only a daily focus of Jewish tradition, but also, especially at this season, our bodies are the literal, metaphysical, and metaphorical focus of our Yom Kippur liturgy. The traditional lists of sins that will be enumerated shortly in the Al-Chet prayers, known formally as Vidui Rabbah, the chest-beating grand confessions, are built around acts of commission and some of omission by various body parts. Although our modern machzorim, our high holiday prayer books, gloss over this literalness to create a more modern and broader list, here's a short sampling of the al-Chaitz translated very literally from the Hebrew. For the sin we have committed by revealing our private body parts, by hardening our hearts, by the expressions on our lips, by the words of our mouths, by the thoughts of our hearts, by the grasping of our hands, by the impurity from our lips, by the foolishness that comes out of our mouths, by the evil of our tongue, by our eating and drinking, by the stretching up of our necks, by the conversation of our lips, by the lying of our eyes, by the raising of our gaze above others, by the insolence of our foreheads, by the stiffening of our necks, and by the running of our legs to do evil. Here then is a list of the multitude of ways in which we use our bodies and body parts to commit wrong after wrong, even though we know and affirm, as in the Genesis creation narrative, that our human body was designed by God, who declared it good. Bodies that were fashioned to do good so that we could serve as God's partners in the world. And yet we continue, even in our high holiday liturgy, to blame our various limbs for the choices that we make, as if those limbs were separate from the totality of our being and not part of the gestalt of our creation. Rabbi Isaac Luria, the 16th century Kabbalist, observed that the confession prayers are written in the plural, al chet shechatanu, for the sin that we have sinned, because, he says, all Israel is considered as a single body, and every person is a limb within that body. So we confess to all the sins of all the parts of our body, not just our part. Those sins are expressed in the plural, not simply to avoid embarrassing individual perpetrators, but in order that the congregation might effectuate the atonement and bring about a change in behavior of the entire community, a change in what we would call the body politic. This year, we couldn't be blamed for adding in some new al-Chaitz for our body politic behaviors. For example, the sin we have committed by sticking our fingers in our ears so we don't have to listen, by burying our heads in the ground so as not to be troubled by the world around us, by squeezing our eyelids shut to avoid the scary scenes, and I don't mean at the movies, by humming so loudly with our throats and tongues that we can't hear others, by using our hands and feet to close off our senses from the world around us. Or perhaps this set, the sin we have committed by stamping our feet in frustration rather than using them to carry us nobly forward toward justice, by our mouths screaming out primal screams rather than offering intelligible words and ideas and solutions, by our tongues over-talking and denying our ears the space and ability to listen to others, by pulling the hair out of our heads rather than making the effort to assert our own self-control. In Jewish tradition, confession is not made by the individual separately in a singular private voice. Rather, it is made collectively and in the plural as we ask for God's forgiveness for the failings of each and every member and the community, the nation of the people of Israel as a whole. This practice that each individual look beyond themselves and undertake a broader and deeper assessment of what ails us as a people. That process, referred to in Hebrew as cheshbon hanefesh, is also body-focused, usually translated as spiritual audit or inventory of the soul. It could also be translated as an assay of the being or an assessment of the person. That biblical Hebrew word nefesh refers to the physical human body and might best be translated as living being. Cheshbon HaNefesh then is not only personal and spiritual, but as Rabbi Luria taught, it is also collective and physical. And so this year, we are called upon to undertake a Cheshbon HaNefesh unlike any other. To start, as always, with our own inner life, but then to expand our assessment to our exterior lives and actions, and indeed to our communal, and finally to our national being and behaviors, to our body politic. We are asked to assess what will it take to maintain the integrity of this body, of this nation. I use that word integrity in both of its meanings. What actions or evasions have we taken in the past year? And what actions must we take or avoid in this coming year to ensure the physical integrity, the integral functioning of our republic's body? But I also mean integrity in its sense of honesty and conscience, the belief and assertion that our deeds must be honest and compassionate and considerate of others. That we seek not merely to maintain our own individual privilege and our own individual safety and well-being, but also our integrity means that our actions demonstrate a recognition that for the national body to survive, to persevere, to succeed, we must be equally committed to the well-being and functioning of all the seemingly disparate parts. And more than that, we must be committed to work in concert with all the other limbs and organs that make up our nation. If we cannot do this as a nation, we will end up emulating some of the self-destructive tendencies evidenced in our own physical human bodies. This year, amid the novel coronavirus outbreak and the diagnosis of COVID-19, we learned a new medical term, cytokine storm. Although it is far more specific, detailed, and technical in actuality, it is one version of what happens when our bodies malfunction, when they over-respond without limit, mistaking organs and limbs as foreign invaders and enemies, when our body engages in a civil war to purge or destroy the very organs that we need to endure and function as a whole. Unlike modern medicine, there is no silver bullet, no vaccine, no antibiotic, no antiviral being developed by big pharma that will shut down the current storm within our body politic. Rather, it will require the choice by every member, every limb and every organ, every hollow and every orifice, every vessel and every inner chamber, every nerve, every fiber of muscle, every party, every faith, every state, to preserve this body politic, this democratic republic, this 2.5 century experiment in liberty and justice for all. We are called upon in this new year of 5,781 to use and utilize and realign our body parts, our nation's eyes and ears, hands and legs, mouth and mind, to find a way to work in concert and to return to homeostasis. I do not know, I cannot tell you how the specifics will work, but I do know that letting our bodies and body parts sit out on the sidelines will not avail us. So this year, as members of the Jewish community and as citizens and residents of these great United States of America, let us resolve to find a way to reunite this great body politic by listening attentively with our ears to those with whom we disagree, by bravely raising our heads to see the troubled world around us, by courageously opening our eyes in order to witness what must be changed, by more frequently silencing our own voices so that we can hear the voice of others, by using our hands to engage and be the change in the world around us, by nobly striding forward with our feet toward justice, by shaping and sounding intelligible words and ideas and solutions with our tongues and our fingers, and finally, by asserting our own self-control over our own bodies, our own behaviors, and not just as individuals, but as a nation, by seeking common ground, a united state of being, e pluribus unum. Good Yontif and a meaningful fast. Thank you.
Yasher Koach.